Meeting of the Tracy City Council to order. This time, any person, all persons please shut off their cell phones. Will the clerk please take the roll?
Councilman Lee. Here. Councilman Stichels.
Here.
Councilman Box.
Present.
Councilman Jarrett.
Present.
Councilman Seal.
Here.
Councilman Maria.
Here.
Councilman Riley. Vecchio.
Present.
Councilman Trino.
Present.
Councilman
Here. Is there a motion to dispense with the reading of the minutes of the last meeting?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, clerk please take the roll.
Councilwoman Lee. Yes. Councilman Stichels.
Yes.
Councilman Box.
Yes.
Councilman Jarrett.
Yes.
Councilman Seal.
Yes.
Councilman Maria.
Yes.
Councilman Riley. Vecchio.
Yes.
Councilman Trino.
Yes.
Councilman
Yes. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Under public acknowledgements and commendations, the note citation to the family of the late Marie G. Collins on her passing on October 28, 2013. Jared Lee Arquette, do you have the citation? Would you mind reading?
Yes, President Williams. Be it hereby known to all that the City of Cranston hereby extends its sincerest condolences and expressions of sympathy to the family of the late Marie G. Collins on her passing on October 28, 2013, signed by our City Council.
Thank you. Are there any other public acknowledgements or accommodations? Hearing none, we'll move on to the public hearing. Are there any members of the public who would like to speak on any matter? Please come forward, give your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Council President, members of the Council. I assume this is the appropriate time to speak. We're here tonight on an appeal that was filed from the decision of the Safety Services Committee. Do you want me to address that now, or I guess you have the document?
Councilman Sandberg?
Thank you, Council President. Attorney Morgan's already talked to me about it, so how you want to do it, you want to do it during committee hearings, committee announcements, or do you want to do it now? It's up to you.
What are we doing now?
Yeah, just very quickly, there was, I was not present at the November 4th Safety Services meeting. The original license of my client, LML/M Taco RI Inc. Opened a new restaurant at 1102 Cranston. They applied for the original license. There was some discussion at the community level, and I believe it was approved with the limitation that they had to close at 1 a.m. They consulted with me. The statute, Rhode Island 5-24-1, is clear that vigilante houses are allowed to be open from 6 a.m. to 2 a.m. And there is a reported Supreme Court case, Southland Corporation versus the City of Lowell, on the 486 May 2nd, page 610, and 1985 case. I discussed it with Solicitor Christian Baum and your counsel, Mr. Dillon. It's our contention that the powers that the council has to issue a victim license is derived from the state. You cannot supersede the statute, and we therefore ask that it acknowledge just made that, in fact, the victim license for the new Taco Bell will enable them to stay open until 2 a.m. That's how most everything houses in the city are. Their store, the Rabbit, has the same hours, and we really want to, as a council, if they would consider ratifying or approving the appeal so that the eviction license can be issued free and clear of the 1 a.m. limitation. I'd be happy to answer your questions.
Any questions from any members of the council? Councilman Lucia.
Yeah, I guess through the chair, we'd like to talk, see what the solicitor's opinion is and what our solicitor's opinion are. They agree that state statute.
I did speak to Mr. Murray, and I was familiar with the case which he cited. The case he cited was a 7-Eleven, which was restricted by towers, I believe, by the city of Warwick, because they had sold bad food. They were considered an eviction license, and they couldn't meet open until 2 in the morning. That statute, although poorly worded, has been interpreted to mean that the city can't control eviction houses. But once you grant the license, I believe you are able to stay open until 2 in the morning.
I agree with that analysis. I looked at Southgate case and that is long.
Councilman San Maria.
Thank you, Council President. At the time we were doing the vote, Councilman Arquette asked questions about the hour. Nobody raised any objections then, so I apologize that we did that without knowing the state statute, but I didn't realize it was in effect, so there was no bad intention of making it 1 o'clock. If we had known it was 2 o'clock, state statute, we would have done that. So.
Yeah, and just so my client didn't interpret that way. I wasn't present, and I hadn't perhaps I would have been able to raise the issue at the time and clarify it, so.
No. It was an honest mistake by the council. We're not attorneys. We don't study state law, so we are bound to make a few mistakes, but we correct them when we find out.
No problem. Thank you.
Should we take the vote now to grant the appeal?
Do we have to suspend the rules, Council President, to do that?
Yeah.
Motion to suspend the rules.
Motion been made to suspend the rules. Is there a second?
Second.
Clerk, please take the roll.
Councilman Lee? Yes. Councilman Stichels?
Yes.
Councilman Box?
Yes.
Councilman Peter Arquette?
Yes.
Councilman Tito?
Yes.
Councilman San Maria?
Yes.
Councilman Vecchio?
Yes.
Councilman Reno?
Yes.
Councilman
Yes. Clerk, please take the roll. On the motion to grant the appeal, Taco Bell to 2 a.m.
I guess we have to make a motion first, Council President.
Make that form of motion, Council.
I make a motion to approve the appeal of the restricted hours for Taco Bell.
Second,
Motion made, second, any discussion? Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilman Lee? Yes. Councilman Stichels?
Yes.
Councilman Box?
yes.
Councilman Peter Arquette?
Yes.
Councilman Tito?
Yes.
Councilman San Maria?
Yes.
Councilman Vecchio?
Yes.
Councilman Reno?
Yes.
Council President?
Yes. Moving on, resolution.
Second.
Resolution authorizing the city to apply for the Department of Environmental Management matching grant for up to $200,000 to design and build a full-service locker room facility at Tracy Stadium, sponsored by Councilman San Maria.
Motion to approve.
Second.
In order to consider this resolution for passage, we need a motion to suspend Rule 34B, which would normally refer a resolution to committee for public hearing.
So moved. I'll withdraw my motion for passage.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules on 34B?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made, second, any discussion?
Council President, I have to withdraw my second on the original motion.
Okay, fine.
Other discussion, Council?
Yes, Councilman San Maria.
Thank you. Through Ken Ferrosky, our grant consultant, that we appointed last
Point of
budget.
order, we have to rule on the motion.
Oh, sorry.
Councilman.
Sorry.
All right, we'll take, clerk, please take the roll for the suspension of Rule 34B.
Councilman Lee? Yes. Councilman Stichels?
Yes.
Councilman Box?
Yes.
Councilman Peter Arquette?
Yes.
Councilman Tito?
Yes.
Councilman San Maria?
Yes.
Councilman Vecchio?
Yes.
Councilman Reno?
Yes.
Council President?
Yes. Is there to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Under discussion, Councilman Santa Maria.
Thank you, Council President. Again, Ken Filarski, our grant consultant, through the hard work of Tony Laboratory and Bob Strong from the administration, we have zeroed in on a matching grant from DEM. I guess Cranston Stadium is in bad needs of locker room facilities. This grant has to be in by Friday. So the reason that we're doing the resolution for immediate consideration is just to meet the deadline. We'd like to have public hearings on it after the fact, but in order to make deadline, we have to get this moving tonight. So I ask of the support of my colleagues to get it moving. And Council President, Mr. Velazquez is here to explain that if anyone has any questions. Welcome.
Councilman Stichels.
Just a question for Councilman Santa Maria. So there would be a second vote after the hearings?
We usually put it to committee and then we have hearings on it. But because of the hard.
Yeah, no,
So I guess what's now would be pass resolution, let Ken get the grant in, then we can have a public meeting after it, rather than a committee meeting, because we really have gone past the committee stage, but still have a public hearing on it, so we can quick answer any questions however you want to do it. The urgency is that we have that hard deadline that we have to get the grant in for. And if we put it to committee, we miss the deadline. That's basically what it is.
I support getting the grant in, but I guess my suggestion would be that there be a public hearing. If the decision is to have it with the full council, that's fine, or the finance committee, that's fine. But then it get voted to the question of whether to pursue the grant be voted on by the council after the hearing, so that people could vote.
Absolutely. I want a transparent process, but I just need you to know that we have a deadline that we have to meet. So, however the body wants to do it, I have no problem with it. But it looks like we're putting the cart before the horse, because we are, basically, only because of the deadline.
So I would just hope that we have a hearing and then we have a vote, and the vote is, do we pursue the grant or do we withdraw it? And if we withdraw it, then there's no harm done, and if we pursue it, then it's already in and it's in on time.
That's up to the body.
Council Vice President Farina.
Through the chair to the solicitor, wouldn't we have to put this in the form of an ordinance after we get to the point and have a public hearing to make it official to actually submit the grant? The resolution is typically non-binding anyway.
Right, yes, resolution is a statement of intent of the council, so I think the resolution is the way to get the application in, but I think it would be appropriate to put it in the form of an ordinance to be binding once it comes back for approval on whether to construct the project.
Now, is that to everybody?
Yes.
Councilman Aceto.
Yeah, I just wanted to say a few words. I know Mr. LaFleur does an unbelievable job in our recreation department. And personal experience, this last spring, I had a son who played the semi-pro professional team, and the reason why they didn't schedule more games or try to get tournaments and whatnot and bring it to the city was the fact that in semi-pro professional soccer, we have locker room facilities. So I think not only will this grant be great for taxpayers because we're getting matching grants, but I think it opens up us to have more tournaments and more use. The city will get the money for the fields being leased, and vendors will get money for people who are shopping and getting lunch and other items in our city. So I think it's a great idea and stuff. And I also want to be asked if I can be a co-sponsor of this resolution.
Duly noted. Please list Mr. Aceto, Councilman Aceto as a co-sponsor. Council Vice President Farina.
Thank you, Council President. I just wanted to make a brief statement. I wanted to thank Councilman Santa Maria and our grant writer, Ken Filarski. When they approached me about this a few weeks ago, we had in the budget a planned item, the bond for new locker rooms at Cranston East, at the Cranston Stadium. I thought this was a great way to approach the project, to save some money on the city side and go for the grant. So kudos to Councilman Santa Maria and our grant writer, Ken Pulaski. Hopefully we can get through the public hearing process, vet this, and move further down the process.
Councilman, Minority Leader Quebec.
Thank you, Council President. I was happy to co-sponsor this with Councilman Santa Maria. I think it's a very good idea, especially when we can get substantial money and grant money to provide a facility that will actually bring money into the city. And some of these tournaments will give Mr. Liberatore a little more latitude in dealing with some of the soccer and other sports tournaments. So I think it's a very good thing. It's good to see that our grant writer's doing some good work, and hopefully you can find some other grants and other things for us. So I will support this.
Councilman Botts.
Thank you, Council President. And, I think it goes without saying that most importantly, these locker rooms will serve the youth of Cranston, especially thinking of this Thursday with the Cranston West, Cranston East football game. Having one locker room, one team was obviously out in the cold at halftime and prior to the game as well. So I think this goes towards both schools and use of facilities. So I will definitely support this. Thank you.
Council Vice President Farina.
I have to correct Councilman Bott, since I did play for Cranston West. We actually weren't outside. They kept us in this little room that has a dirt floor under the bleachers. So I think the locker rooms will go a long way.
Mrs. Drummond, you make the comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to say from the administration standpoint, I met with Mr. Pulaski and Mr. Liberatore on November 6th. We had a discussion about the potential bond through DEM. At that time, I thought it was a good idea that we would pursue it. Mr. Pulaski obviously took the forefront to do that. He's done a great job in getting us to the point of an application. The application has been extended to December 6th, which is a week from this Friday, but we are on a short time frame. So the grant is for a total of $800,000, which would be $400,000 from the city and $400,000 from the state. Based on our discussion, we're looking more at the $250,000 range for the city, and it will be a matching complement from the state of $250,000. As far as where the money would be coming from, it would be coming from the bond, recreation bond fund, which was just passed. We went out for $1 million. We would draw from that $250,000. Based on my discussion again with Mr. Liberatore, he feels that the $250,000 from the city and another, say, $250,000 from the state would be more than adequate to put in what he feels would be adequate and very nice lockers. And the other reason why I support it is that, as was previously mentioned, that the revenues that can be generated from this would go quite far as the reimbursement for the expense that the city would certainly incur in doing this. And it would be advantageous monetarily and also from a servicing leagues and our local school athletes. So I support this.
Anybody else? Councilwoman Lee?
I think this is a great idea, and it seems like it would bring great things to that area. I guess I have some concerns because the traffic backs up at the moment, so I was just, I haven't read through the whole package here, but I just don't know whether that is something that needs to be addressed, the parking and a little bit of the traffic. Depends, I guess, on the events coming in, the numbers, and the times of days, but that's one thing that I was just thinking of. And, but I think it's a great project, and I wish us the best of luck. Thanks.
Councilman Santa Maria.
Thank you, Council President. Mr. Pulaski is scheduled to speak on this on item 7, report of city offices. So can we have answer the questions at that time, or?
Well, we're in the middle of discussion right now. Why don't we ask Mr. Pulaski to speak at this point?
Would you be open to questions, Council President?
Yes.
Thank you, Council President.
Push button, it says push.
So
But it's not what it was.
There's also do not scream, it said. Thank you, Council President Laney and Councilman Sam Maria. Going to your question, a lot of the grant application goes, there has to be justification in the state comprehensive outdoor recreation plan and also local comprehensive plan. And from those elements, it was addressed, and actually there were questions in the grant application. Park Avenue is one of the 3 most highly traveled streets in the city. And it's cited in the comprehensive plan to look at as both from a traffic standpoint and also overall from the city from the standpoint of upgrading commercial corridors. One of the things that the grant says is that the activity that will be generated with the additional events, and the events will be for a wider range of audiences, starting with the interscholastic and youth leagues in the city, and also the active recreation and also cultural recreation. That it undoubtedly will drive a lot of business in and around the immediate area of Cranston Stadium, not only for the retailers, but also for service facilities. So it is something for the city to look at long range and how the enhancement of Cranston Stadium can actually serve as a lever arm for Park Avenue to, not only for commercial, but also for traffic mitigation.
Okay, so that's the, thank you. They wrote that.
Any other questions from Mr. Pulaski? Right. I don't have a question, but I think I have a statement. Years ago, we put the artificial turf in Cranston Stadium. The council, and I was on the council at that time, got a lot of opposition. We hired Grant Lake, did some opposition also. The artificial turf we put down was a boom to the city of Cranston, and we saved an awful lot of money by not replacing grass, watering grass, and fertilizing grass. $400,000 grant. The grant writer that we're paying less than $40,000 to for the year is another boom to the city of Cranston. Mr. Pulaski, you did a good job. On behalf of this council, thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Thank you very much, Council President.
Hearing no further discussion, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilwoman Lee?
Yes.
Council Stichels?
Yes.
Council Bott?
Yes.
Council Majority Leader Martello?
Yes.
Council Lucia?
Yes.
Council San Maria?
Yes.
Council Minority Leader Vecchio?
Yes.
Council Vice President Carino?
Yes.
Council President Lee?
Yes. Our important committees, Finance Committee, Chairman Stichels.
Thank you. The first item is a resolution authorizing 2 tax abatements for properties that were questioned last month, and the Finance Committee did receive information about both those properties and unanimously voted to recommend approval of those tax abatements as recommended by the assessor. So I need a motion.
Motion to approve. Second.
Motion made second. Any discussion? Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilwoman Lee?
Yes.
Council Stichels?
Yes.
Council Bott?
Yes.
Council Majority Leader Martello?
Yes.
Council Lucia?
Yes.
Council San Maria?
Yes.
Council Minority Leader Vecchio?
Yes.
Council Vice President Carino?
Yes.
Council President Lee?
Yes.
Next is real estate and tangible tax abatements recommended by the tax assessor.
Motion approved. Second.
Motion made second. Any discussion? Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilwoman Lee?
Yes.
Council Stichels?
Yes.
Council Bott?
Yes.
Council Majority Leader Martello?
Yes.
Council Lucia?
Yes.
Council San Maria?
Yes.
Council Minority Leader Vecchio?
Yes.
Council Vice President Carino?
Yes.
Yes.
Next is motor vehicle tax abatements as recommended by the assessor.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion made second. Any discussion? Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilwoman Lee?
Yes.
Council Stichels?
Yes.
Council Bott?
Yes.
Council Majority Leader Martello?
Yes.
Council Lucia?
Yes.
Council San Maria?
Yes.
Council Minority Leader Vecchio?
Yes.
Council Vice President Carino?
Yes.
Council President Lee?
Yes.
tax interest waiver approval is recommended by the city treasurer.
Second.
Motion made second, any discussion? Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilwoman Lee?
Yes.
Council Stichels?
Yes?
Council Box?
Yes.
Council Jordan, Raquel?
Yes.
Council Lucia?
Yes.
Council Severino?
Yes.
Council Margarito, Vecchio?
Yes.
Council Rivera?
Yes.
Council President?
Yes.
And finally, the tax interest waiver denials. Denials are recommended by the city treasurer.
Motion to approve the denials. Second.
Motion made second, any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilwoman Lee?
Yes.
Council Stichels?
Yes?
Council Box?
Yes.
Council Jordan, Raquel?
Yes.
Council Lucia?
Yes.
Council Severino?
Yes.
Council Margarito, Vecchio?
Yes.
Council Rivera?
Yes.
Council President?
Yes.
The next item is an ordinance ratifying the school committee's collective bargaining agreement with the Council 94 Local 2044, which are the school secretaries.
Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Under discussion, Councilman Stichels.
This was approved by the Finance Committee with the recommendation of both the school committee and the secretarial union. The contract is both the union and the school committee have agreed to abide by an arbitrator's award and the arbitrator's award sets out the provisions of the contract. This is not binding arbitration, it's recommendation arbitration, and the secretaries are urging us to accept this because they fear that the school committee, if it is not accepted, will make a worse contract with deeper cuts than was proposed by the arbitrator. The arbitrator on health insurance has recommended a $500 deductible on the policy, increasing the co-pays for doctor's visits to $15 for a primary physician, $25 for a specialist, $50 for urgent care, go to urgent care center, and $100 to go to the emergency room. And also on healthcare, increasing the drug co-pays from $7 generic, $30 brand name, and $50 for it's like super brand name drugs. The contract also freezes longevity. In other words, there will be no longevity payment in the current year that we're in. The same with steps. There will be no steps for the secretaries in the current year that we're in. And finally, there's a reduction, somewhat complicated reduction in the way that sick leave is paid out on retirement. Altogether, these concessions are estimated to cost $221,000 a year. I forgot the biggest one, which is that full employees will have 5 holidays and 5 regular work days with no pay. And school year employees will have 4 regular work days with no pay and 4 fewer holidays. So when that's factored in, you get to the arbitrator estimated at $221,000 savings. So I would recommend ratifying this contract. It is pretty stiff medicine for the secretary's unit, but as I said, they are asking us to approve it.
Councilman Sangre?
Thank you, to the council president, to the chair. Do we have an average salary? What's their average salary? Do we know that? I hate to put you on the spot, but...
I don't know it off the top of my head, but I might be able to find it, but not when I push that button on the computer. Councilman Is there someone here? Oh, Lori, yes, maybe you could answer the question far better than me.
It'll range on the low end of about 44.
On the mic and identify yourself, please.
Good evening, I'm Lori Ryan, and I represent the secretaries of the Cranston Public Schools. Our salaries on the low end would range from about $34,000 up to the highest of $39,000 a year.
Councilman Seagull.
I'm good with voting through the contract. I just have a question. Based on our ordinance charter, if this council were to not approve it, then what would happen? I get an answer from the solicitors. I mean, it's never really been tested in Cranston anyways, it's been tested someplace else.
Our ratification of school committee, school contracts has only been a few years old.
Exactly.
There's a requirement that before the contract is implemented, that it be ratified by the city council. I quite frankly do not know what would happen. There are a variety of things that could happen, ranging from the school committee filing an action, the union filing an action, or an interest arbitration.
So we don't know if it's case law in another community or something that does the same, do we? Not yet? No. Okay, thank you.
This is a relatively new ordinance that we ratify school union contracts. An ordinance that I proposed back in 2010, I believe, which was passed by 66% of the voters. And you're right, it's a new ordinance, it's a new concept, and I don't know of any other city in town that has it. We do. I would only assume that it wasn't ratified and go back to the bargaining table unless somebody brought it up. Councilman Box?
Thank you, Council President. I remember Mrs. Ryan on the high school lab when I was campaigning back last year. And she did mention the ongoing issues with the secretary's contract at the time, and we have to fight for the secretaries and that sort of thing. And isn't it wonderful that they have to go to work 5 days out of the year without receiving pay, or a particular holiday where everyone else is getting paid for that particular holiday and they're not? And I think that's blatantly unfair. And it really is too bad timing is an issue, because I guess this arbitration was occurred back in February. And since then, we've discovered that the school potentially has quite a bit of a surplus in their budget for this year. And the only thing I would actually vote no on this contract, but because the Secretary's Union recommended voting yes, I will vote yes for this. I just think it's wrong for one of the lowest paid bargaining units in the city to have to bear a $221,000 cut in their contract. And yeah, I will be voting for it. Yeah, no, that's exactly. And the administrators are receiving raises somehow where they found money in other areas of the budget. But as I said, in the committee meeting, you can manipulate a spreadsheet any way you want to, but the bottom line is they're getting cut today and the administration's getting raises. So I do, again, find it blatantly unfair, but I would vote yes for the contract.
Councilman Samaria?
Thank you, Council President. I agree with everything Councilman Fox, my colleague, just said. This is shameful. But because the alternative would be worse, I don't want to hurt you any worse than you've already been hurt. So I'm going to eat a rat sandwich, as I would say, and vote for this contract, even though I think the money that was used for the administrators could have been used to help you out. So again, I think it's shameful, but I'm going to be voting for it.
Councilman Vice President Farina.
Thank you, Council President. To the Lord from the Union, I wasn't going to support this in the committee process, but when I heard the fear in your voice, the potential to lose more benefits and more salary was a real alternative I decided to go for this, and I will vote for this for you tonight based on you requesting it, but I do not think it's a fair contract.
Councilman Martello.
Thank you, President Lee. I'm going to reluctantly support this contract. I see it as injustice. The school committee chipping away at the lower pay scale individuals in their employment at a time when the school department gave raises to administrators with six-figure salaries. They're cutting individuals who are making $35,000. I see an injustice here. They're freezing their longevity, they eliminated their steps. So they took a major hit. I vote against this. However, the secretaries have requested that we vote for it. So I will vote in favor of this reluctantly. Thank you.
Councilman Ivey, second.
Thank you, Council President. I had a relative who served as a secretary with the schools for 25 years or so I am familiar with the work that they do. And I'm just curious as to, there's a 15% wage reduction as I see it. Is that through the chairman? Is that how I read this? Is wage reduction as well as all these other reductions?
No, I believe that was the proposal of the school committee. And then what the arbitrator, in the arbitrator's decision, decided to do was he rejected that proposal, but instead he did this thing with the 10 days, the 5 work days and the 5 holidays for the full-timers and the 4 and 4 for the part-timers. So that was his recommendation.
I will concur with my colleagues that this is shameful in the way that the school committee has handled this, but if the union people would like to see us pass it, I'll reluctantly go along with it as well, but certainly I'm very reluctant about it.
Any other discussion? My only comment is that it's an injustice. Everybody here spoke exactly the way we feel concerning this matter. It's a shame when the Jared Martello said $100,000 plus employees get raises, people at the bottom get stepped on. That's not justice, it's injustice. I feel bad for this union, but I will have to vote for this because they want it. Hearing no other discussion, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilwoman Lee?
Yes.
Council Stichels?
Yes.
Council Box?
Yes.
Council Jarvis Martello?
Yes.
Council Lucido?
Yes.
Council Severino?
Yes.
Councilman Ivan Vecchio?
Yes.
Council Marino?
Yes.
Councilman Lane?
Yes. Safety Services Election Committee, Council Chair, Santa Maria.
Thank you, Council President. We have one item now because we voted on the second item, transfer of class liquor license new from Class B limited to Class B full. This needs full council approval. Tommy's Pizza. It was voted unanimously on the committee. I recommend approval.
Motion approved.
Second.
Motion made to second. Any discussion? Councilor Stichels.
What's a BV full?
They have to have a menu with the full liquor license. B is the class, and B is victual.
Oh, okay.
So with the full liquor license, you have to have a menu, like state law.
So this is this going from beer and wine to?
Beer and wine to full, correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Well,
Any other discussion? Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilwoman Lee?
Yes.
Council Stichels?
Yes.
Council Box?
Yes.
Council Jarvis Martello?
Yes.
Council Lucido?
Yes.
Council Severino?
yes.
Councilman Ivan Vecchio?
Yes.
Council Vice President Marino?
Yes.
Councilman Lane?
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Councilor Santa Maria, on the appeal on Taco Bell, is that?
We did at the beginning, correct?
Yes.
Okay, then I have no further communications, Council President.
All right. Claims Committee, Councilwoman Sarah Lee.
Just, this is for informal purposes only, just to report the claims of the month. Curtis Matthew received $133.32 for property damage. Kevin Alcina, $1,318.77 for property damage. And Lucy A. Arenas received $32.08 for property damage. And that is it.
Okay, moving on, public hearing on any docketed or undocketed item. Anybody from the public like to speak on any docketed or undocketed item, please step forward, give your name and address for the record. Okay, nobody's got nothing to say, so we're going to close that part of the public hearings. Election of city officials. Juvenile hearing board. Member reappointment term ending December 1st, 2016. Raymond White, Esquire, Chair. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second. Motion made, second. Discussion. Hearing none. Clerk, please take roll.
Councilman Lee?
Yes.
Councilman Stichels?
Yes.
Councilman Box?
Yes.
Councilman Jordan Martell?
Yes.
Councilman Lucido?
Yes.
Councilman San Maria?
Yes.
Councilman Ivey?
Yes.
Councilman Reno?
Yes.
Council President?
Yes. Joseph Morocco.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. Clerk, please take roll.
Councilman Lee?
Yes.
Councilman Stichels?
Yes.
Councilman Box?
Yes.
Councilman Jordan Martell?
Yes.
Councilman Lucido?
Yes.
Yes.
Councilman Ivey?
Yes.
Councilman Reno?
Yes.
Council President?
Yes. Alternate reappointments, term ending December 1st, 2014, Judy Marks, Esquire.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Mr. President, I think we forgot one on the agenda. Is there a date again?
Oh, sorry. Step back. David Gilligan, Esquire.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, please take the roll.
Councilman Lee?
Yes.
Councilman Stichels?
Yes.
Councilman Box?
Yes.
Councilman Jordan Martell?
Yes.
Councilman Lucido?
Yes.
Councilman San Maria?
Yes.
Councilman Ivey?
Yes.
Councilman Reno?
Yes.
Council President?
Yes. Councilman Lucido?
Yeah, motion to take the alternate reappointments as a block.
Second.
Motion to agree to take the alternates as a block. The motion made in second. Discussion? Hearing none.
Take it as a block, I'm sorry. Wait till the formal motion.
Motion.
I made that formal motion.
Yes. Well, yeah, I'll wait until we vote on the appointments.
All right, clerk, please take the roll on the motion.
Councilman Lee?
Yes.
Councilman Stichels?
Yes.
Councilman Box?
Yes.
Councilman Jordan Martell?
Yes.
Councilman Lucido?
Yes.
Councilman San Maria?
Yes.
Councilman Ivey?
Yes.
Councilman Reno?
Yes.
Council President?
Yes.
Motion to approve the block. Second.
Motion been made to approve as a block, it's a second. Any discussion? Councilman Harry, leave it for Becky.
Thank you, Council President. Just one comment. I'm just glad to see that we have three women on the alternate list. As some of you may recall, Councilman Stichels and myself and Councilman Donahue back at the time forward suggested that we get some more women on board. And it seems like we have a good group of people who are ready to take over and get involved in this, since we'd like to have some women representation on this board. So, just wanted to suggest that, remind everyone.
Any other discussion? On the motion? Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilman Lee?
Yes.
Councilman Stichels?
Yes.
Councilman Box?
Yes.
Councilman Jordan Martell?
Yes.
Councilman Lucido?
Yes.
Councilman San Maria?
Yes.
Councilman Ivey?
Yes.
Councilman Reno?
Yes.
Council President?
Yes. Are there any other election of city officials? Hearing none. Moving on, report of city offices. We discussed the recreation grant. Any other further discussion on that? Council Chairman?
Council President, Mr. Velazquez told me if any council members have any questions, they're more than welcome to call him. And then we can set up the public hearing probably after the holiday. Okay.
Moving on to the October 2013 sewer connection report. Is there any discussion concerning that? Are there any other reports? Executive communications. Does the administration have anything to report?
Yes, thank you, Council President. Cranston Fire Department Lieutenant Kevin Ansley is requested to be continued in service. Lieutenant Ansley has met all the necessary requirements, and we urge you to approve.
Motion approved.
Second. Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilwoman Lee?
Yes.
Councilman Stichels?
Yes.
Councilman Botts?
Yes.
Councilman Jordan Markello?
Yes.
Councilman Lucido?
Yes.
Councilman Sam?
Yes.
Councilman Margaret Vecchio?
Yes.
Councilman Marino?
Yes.
Council President?
Yes. Solicitor's opinion on city committee and council jurisdictional authority to ratify collective bargaining agreements.
Council President, if you might, I would suggest that, I've written an opinion to be discussed. I would suggest that the council discuss it in executive session pursuant to 42-46-5, sub-parentheses, as it relates to labor relations and collective bargaining. If there is the will to go into executive session, I can do that. Or if, I'm hesitant to say this without going into executive session, because I think it compromises certain aspects of the city's position.
So,
Second.
Motion's been made. What was the motion?
to go into executive session pursuant to what he said.
And Councilman Seeley, you second that, correct?
I did.
Any discussion on the motion? Councilman Stichels?
Yeah, what is the rush or why is it being proposed tonight or rather going?
Well, this was the next available meeting, after which the labor contract was considered that I had derived this opinion, and I wanted to get it to you as soon as possible.
Councilman San Maria?
Aside from that, I'm not.
Council President, I feel uncomfortable talking about legal stuff. I think it needs to be discussed in executive session, if we're going to do executive session.
Any other discussion? I feel uncomfortable talking about something I know nothing about. But the only way we're going to find out is close the doors. So a motion's been made and seconded to go into the executive session. Any other discussion? Clerk, please take the roll.
Councilwoman Lee?
Yes.
Councilman Stichels? I'm sorry.
No.
Councilman Botts?
Yes.
Councilman Jordan Markello?
Yes.
Councilman Lucido?
Yes.
Councilman Sam?
Yes.
Councilman Margaret Vecchio?
Yes.
Councilman Marino?
Yes.
Council President?
Yes. We're now in executive session.
It's funny what executive session
You see, but that's different. It's done all the time.
Play football with it too.
I need a motion to go into executive session. Motion made second. Clerk, please take the roll.
Stichels? Council Barnes?
Yes.
Council Jordan? Markel?
Yes.
Lucido?
Yes.
Council Severino?
Yes.
Council Vecchia?
Yes.
Council Canestrino?
Yes.
Council President?
Yes. We now seal the minutes. Councilman Seagull.
Motion to seal the minutes?
Motion made to seal the second, seal the minutes. Any discussion? Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilwoman Lee?
Yes.
Council Stichels?
Yes.
Council Barnes?
Yes.
Jordan? Markel?
Yes.
Council Barnes?
Yes.
Council Lucido?
Yes.
Council Severino?
Yes.
Council Vecchia?
Yes.
Council Canestrino?
Yes.
Council President?
Yes. Next item on the agenda is Council President Communications.
Council President?
Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Bridgman.
I'm sorry, Council President. I just have one more piece of business that I'm going to put on the clerk's desk. This is an amendment to the sewer connection agreement between the city of Cranston and Rhode Island called RILFG. This is the gas plant. Essentially, this is a very slight change in wording that DEM had requested that the Public Works Committee look at and modify. So I'm going to submit this to Rose. This is for discussion and ratification by the full council. It just specifies that we have the right to go into their facility at any point in time, not just business hours, inspection.
Councilman Seaver.
Council President, I think we have to make a motion to accept that since it's past the deadline. That piece of legislation, do we have to make a motion?
We need a legal opinion on that.
We can do that.
I just want to make, because I'll make a motion to waive the deadline if I get a second.
Second.
All right. Abundance of caution. Motion to waive the deadline is a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilwoman Lee?
Yes.
Council Stichels?
Yes.
Council Barnes?
Yes.
Council Jordan? Markel?
Yes.
Council Lucido?
Yes.
Council Severino?
Yes.
Council Vecchia?
Yes.
Council Canestrino?
Yes.
Council President?
Yes. Moving on, Council President Communications. Only have a few things to say this evening. First, my condolences to the Tompkins family. I'm sure I represent the entire city council. Dick Tompkins has been a gadfly here for years. Sometimes we agree with him, most of the time we don't. But his wife was a wonderful person. I knew her personally, and I think I speak for the entire council. Our condolences to the entire family. The other thing I want to speak about is the $400,000 grant. It's not too often we get a home run. And we haven't hit it yet until it's approved. But we're close to hitting a home run with this $400,000 grant. It'll do wonders for making Cranston Stadium a first-class operation, a pride to this community, and it'll attract athletic teams from throughout New England to this area if we get this grant and put in showers and the other facility things that we need to make this a first-class operation. And lastly, I wish everybody a sincere, happy Thanksgiving. Moving on to council member communications, are there any? Someone must have, Councilman Stichels.
Yeah, well, we're on the subject of grants. A question for Chief of Staff Lopez. I sent you an email indicating that there were some America the Beautiful tree grants available, and suggesting that we meet with John Campanini from the Rhode Island Tree Council to talk about the setback tree planting and the possibility of getting those grants. And I haven't heard anything, and would like to get that meeting set up, as I mentioned in the email, the first week of December. Is that possible? Can we get that?
I
I don't recall getting that email, but I'm sure we can do a meeting about that. Is it to fill out the applications or just to send?
Well, I think it's two things. It's to talk about how to set up a setback tree planting program. John has some suggestions based on other communities and recommendations, but one of them would involve the city agreeing to buy a certain number of trees now when the price is low. And the second issue is that these grants will be coming out, and we need to, if we want to take advantage of them, we need to hop on it, and having a setback tree planting program defined, according to John, who is, for the rest of the people here, is the former city forester in the city of Providence and very involved with the Rhode Island Tree Council, an expert on this stuff. Anyway, according to John, if we have a setback tree planting program set up, we are more likely to receive the grant money. So,
I can touch base with you tomorrow or before the Thanksgiving, and we'll work something out.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Council President. Director, I just want to kind of make something, put it out on the record here. This grant thing isn't a DNR, it's a cheap thing for taxpayers. So if there's any department that might need software upgrades or anything, I know Director Cody's done a real good job as far as looking at grants for the city. But this is just an extra person that we have, and he's more than willing to help any department head, wherever. If you guys got a lead, or somebody has a lead that is a possible grant, or even through the chamber, he's ready to, do whatever he has to do. So I don't know, maybe if your next staff meeting, you can, put it on, the agenda, and if anybody needs anything, and he possibly can research it. I mean, it's a win for everybody here, so.
Thank you, Councilman Aceto, for your suggestion. And just so you know, we have been working with Mr. Kowalski. Finance Director Strong has given him all the contacts of people he's needed to talk to for that particular grant, and I'm sure we'll continue to work with him.
But I mean, other departments like purchasing, or even, the taxpayer office, if there's like different software or something you could upgrade, let's get it done. We've got a guy who's willing to work on it, and I know everybody else is doing a lot, a little cutbacks, but, just, we could all work together on this.
Sure.
Councilman Stichels.
The other matter I wanted to mention is that it wasn't reported in the Finance Committee report, but the Finance Committee did vote to reject the police contract that was negotiated by the mayor and the police union. I think the majority felt that the 11.25% pay increase proposed in the 3-year agreement was excessive. There's a lot of concern about the introduction of steps for the officers for the first time, and it was my estimate that by the end of the contract, if the contract was passed, the cost of policing would be up by $1 million a year. So I just want to report to the full council and also to the public that that did happen at the last Finance Committee meeting.
Any other council communications? Hearing none, I close that portion. Old business. Is there any old business listed? No? Introduction of new business. Will the city clerk please read the new businesses?
Ordinance 1113, ordinance amendment Title 9.8, Code of the City of Cranston, entitled Offenses Relating to Property, Tree Pruning and Removal Notice, and that's referred to Public Works Committee on December 2nd at 6:30. Ordinance 1113, 2, ordinance amendment Title 10, Chapter 12.260, Code of the City of Cranston, entitled Motor Vehicles and Traffic, One-Way Street Intersections, enumerated, Parkville Drive, Cypress Drive, and Garden City Drive, referred to ordinance committee December 5, 6 p.m. 1113.3, ordinance under Title 10, Chapter 32.030 of the Code of the City of Cranston, entitled Motor Vehicles and Traffic, multi-way stop intersections enumerated, Garden City Drive, Upland Drive, and Garden Court, referred to ordinance committee December 5, 6 p.m. Ordinance 1113.4, amendment of Title 3 of the Code of the City of Cranston, entitled Revenue and Finance, real property tax exemption for elderly and handicapped, referred to Finance Committee December 5th at 6:30 p.m. Resolution one order of the City of Cranston approving the financing of upgrades and renovations of the city's sewer system, including rapid lines, force mains, pump stations, and the treatment plant, and all preliminary and incidental expenses, and approving additions to wastewater system, revenue bonds, and notes therefore amount not to exceed $25 million. Referred to Finance Committee December 5th, 6:30 p.m. Request for National Grid for joint pole location at Barker Drive, and request for National Grid for joint pole location at Barker Avenue. Referred to December 2nd to the Works Committee at 6:30 p.m. And claims for Roberta, property damage, lead incident on August 16, 2013, Stephen and Francine Farragher, property damage claim incident on September 2nd, 2013, referred to the Green Committee December 2nd, and that was another 5:30 p.m.
Motion to assign the proper committees.
Motion made, second, any discussion? Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilwoman Lee?
Yes.
Councilman Stichels?
Yes.
Councilman Box?
Yes.
Councilman Darrell, Marquardt?
Yes.
Councilman Lucido?
Yes.
Councilman Maria?
Yes.
Councilman Ivey, Vecchio?
Yes.
Councilman Castellino?
Yes.
Council President?
Yes. Miscellaneous business on the clerk's desk. 8-13-7, ordinance amendment to Title 10, Chapter 40, of the Code of the City of Cranston, 2005, entitled Traffic Regulations for Specific Streets, Crosswalk, Kansas Avenue, north side of its intersection with Appleton. It was vetoed by the mayor.
Question, are we,
Councilman Stichels.
are we taking a veto override on that, or just?
There's a motion to override the veto, well, in a second we can take it.
I see, there's to be a motion, okay.
Hearing no motions? Next is on information only, no further action, ordinance ratifying the IBPO International Brothers of Police Officers contract, local union 301, fiscal year 2012 to 2013, table October 17, 2013. Also, 2014 transfer municipal court session schedule. The city council's next regular meeting will be January 27, 2014. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
For the order, we have a meeting December 16th.
My mistake, December 16, 2013.
Motion adjourned.
Second. Ready to adjourn, is there a second? Second. All in favor?